Today on Administrative Results, the STEYR SCOUT. Did that feel like the History Channel?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a rifle that you would carry around a bunch and probably only shoot like once. That's what kind of rifle we're dealing with here. But for the sake of the YouTube video, we'll probably be shooting it a bunch.
Dead center.
I do gotta say that I never played CSGO, Scouts and Knives, and so if I don't make any appropriate reference to it in this video, it's because I don't have the lore backing to do so, and if I did, it would just be stolen valor.
Ah! Oh yeah! That's what I'm talking about! That's what I'm talking about! Can't believe I got that.
That was sick. Have you ever seen anyone do that?
I just did. You just saw it. Now all of China's gonna see it. Enough horsing around! Jeff Cooper would call us idiots!
Playing Scouts and Knives, I was. Stolen valor, I have.
When we think about the scout rifle, what necessarily is it? What constitutes a scout rifle? And it's more so the concept. But it's also a rifle, but it's a rifle that fits inside the concept. A buddy of mine from the gun counter summed it up well when I was talking to him about this. He said this scout rifle is like a Swiss Army knife. It can do a lot of different things. It doesn't specialize in one thing. It's not a hammer, it's not a butcher knife, it's a Swiss Army knife. You can get a lot of utility out of it, out of this gun. So just put 22 rounds through the STEYR SCOUT in this volley, and one thing I noticed that stood out was how quickly the mirage and the heat just starts to come off of that barrel and silencer. You really do see it through a scout scope. As soon as it starts getting hot, it's like, oh, there it is. There's that little mirage. There's the oasis. Oh no, it's not actually water. So that was kind of fun to see just how quick that comes into play.
Okay, I need to group this thing. We're using some AAC 140 grain. I believe they are boat tail hollow points. Let's see what we cannot do. I go top right. First shot of the day. Nothing like it. All right, that was 10 rounds. Let's go see what we got.
I'm seeing some results, and they're administrative. Hey, watch this. Whoa, did you see that?
Yeah.
All right, hitting everything but the square. So funny enough, when I'm looking at the Burris optic on this thing, the reticle, I swear to God, at 100 yards, takes up this little square, which would make sense, right? Like 1 MOA. When you're at 100 yards with this 2.7 by 20, with this 2.75 by 20 Burris optic, the crosshair reticle you really can't perfectly identify the square if you're sitting over it. That being said, with how this is grouping, I got 2 flyers. That's a nice little group right there. Looks like it's sub MOA. But other than that, you know, we're going back to the age-old saying on the channel where it's usually I'm the problem and the gun's probably gonna perform better than I will. So that's good to see. That was just 10 rounds with some AAC 140 grains, 6.5 Coatmore.
Well, I want my scout rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor. Okay, fine. But it's not a scout rifle.
Now there's some very interesting history around the scout rifle. We wind back the clock. We go back to Jeff Cooper.
When Jupiter carried the thunderbolt in his hand, why, I am an inheritor of that legend. But I grew up with it. The idea that you can point and your power rides right to the end of your arm and touches that with whatever.
So one thing about the scout rifle concept as a whole is that this idea predates the current gun guy by several generations. It's an idea that stems from an era where bolt-action rifles were still seen as a viable fighting small arm in the current world that Jeff Cooper grew up in. You gotta think, like, semi-automatic rifles, Jeff Cooper, well aware of them. He absolutely knew of them, but bolt-action rifles were still being used in World War II and beyond. Wherever the current military tech couldn't catch up, bolt-action rifles were still pressed into service. Now, as time would go on, the bolt-action rifle was seen as less and less favorable for this specific type of engagement that was envisioned. We gotta look at the name of the concept, the scout rifle, the scout. If you look at this historically, the scout is someone that is a very well-savvied infantryman. The goal of these guys, if you're a scout, is to not necessarily be engaging directly with the enemy non-stop, back to back. You're out there to try and gather information, and if you have to engage, it's one round, you're on the move, and that round smacking the bad guy dead. Hence you get the term of a scout rifle. You're not there to do non-stop combat, you're there to observe. So back in the day, the idea was a really light and nifty rifle. And light and nifty bolt-action rifles have been around for a long time. And a lot of like nifty bolt-action rifles, if we want to step back even further historically, come about really before the modern mechanization of the world. When bolt-action rifles were coming onto the scene, cavalry was still a thing. And so guys on mounted troops needed to have these small, light rifles, and they weren't necessarily as concerned about the overall length for repelling cavalry because they were the guys on horses. So out of that era, you get to Jeff Cooper, right? And he's a product of his generation, a guy born in 1920. He's growing up, and to be fair, at his point in time, he could be considered like the cutting-edge gun guy of the era, and he's kind of regarded as that of the older generation of gun guys. In the book that I was referencing for this, the Scout Rifle Study, the author calls Jeff Cooper like the Elvis of his generation of gun guys, pretty much, by Richard Mann. And we can be familiar with that. Like, I think of growing up in the firearms space where I'm at now, and it was guys like Travis Haley that was pushing the envelope.
Gun! Check. Okay.
More guys would come onto the scene, and then you have a little bit of a wider pool to take data from. Bigger personalities. But back in the day, it was Jeff Cooper and the Gunsight Ranch that was like the pinnacle of the gun guy ideology. So something to put in perspective for my older guys, Jeff Cooper died in 2006. In 2006, I was 10 years old. So we're kind of removed a lot from the peak era when Jeff was probably in his prime up until now, but a lot of his ideas are still persistent in the embodiment of scout rifles, and the idea still kind of holds true to this day. A lot of my personal interest stems from military application of firearms, law enforcement application of firearms, civilian application of firearms in terms of like self-defense or worried about tyrannical overreach, and that's where a lot of that stems from. And so approaching a scout rifle in today's age is a little bit of a new experience for me. As I've gone down this rabbit hole in the video, I have since pretty much fallen in love with the STEYR SCOUT. Like, I think it's just a very cool bolt-action rifle.
This thing's pretty freaking sick, dude. It's pretty freaking sick.
But I was trying to play with the notion of if it had to be pressed into a combative service of some kind, what would that look like? And the idea really is if you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of really good optic options, that's where something like this could come into a stride of its own in a sense. But imagine if you're in a country where all you have is like this style of scout rifle and a low powered optic like this 2.7, but then a lot of the semi-automatic rifles that you may be fighting against only have iron sights. There's kind of an advantage there that you can utilize. This is kind of a cornball example, but when I play the video game Hell Let Loose, it's a World War II hardcore first-person shooter, and all of the infantry guys have iron sights, except for one class, the sniper. And that sniper has some kind of magnified optic. If you're the Germans, I think it's an 8 times. If you're the other factions, I think you just get a 4 times optic. But the guy that has the magnified optic is kind of like king of the battlefield because he can sit back from an advantageous spot and just absolutely pick off enemy troops unmolested for the most part until he gets caught. So guys that do have magnification in the iron sights world will probably fare a lot better. And then of course, if you have it to where you can shoot fast with a magnified optic, even if it's a bolt action, like quick follow-up shots, because you have a long eye relief, you're not getting sucked into the optic up close, it's also advantageous.
This thing will get its whole own video, but good God, man. Taking a look at probably the inspiration, or one of them, of the inspirations for the scout rifle concept, a Kar 98K with a ZF41 optic. It is a far cry from what you can have set up today, and even this is a far cry from what you can have in a precision bolt gun setup. You know, this thing is like phenomenal compared to this thing. Granted, this 1.5 power magnified optic on a 5 MOA gun is probably not the best, but that being said, you know, you got to see where the roots of something come from. This is pretty cool, but we got to keep focused on this.
And then a cool thing you don't really have to worry about with an optic like this is never having to change the batteries, which can be nice because you can kind of set it, forget it, go out into the field. You know, you don't have to worry about batteries whatsoever, I guess besides if you have a flashlight. But you know, a funny thing about this video is that we're going over the STEYR SCOUT, which is a scout rifle for the most part, but how I have it configured is it's over the weight of the scout rifle classification, and weight's a massive part of this entire endeavor. The goal is to keep these guns very light and handy. I've tricked this thing out to the 9s, and it's a little bit heavier than what you would want if you really had to carry this thing for just undetermined amount of time on end. But the classifications for all of this did come from a gun sight conference that Jeff Cooper hosted in 1983, and from that's where he got all of his buddies together and they got the general idea and requirements, the weight, the barrel length, the chambering, the action, all this kind of stuff was the starting point. And from that starting point, it got the ball rolling to lead up to the STEYR SCOUT. So going off of Mann's book, in September of 1990, STEYR Mannlicher invited Jeff Cooper to visit. And then Mann writes, the STEYR SCOUT was unveiled in the Whittington Center in Rayton, New Mexico in October of 1997. So it took a while from start to finish to get to the STEYR SCOUT, from the inception in the minds of Jeff Cooper's friends, from the engineers at STEYR, and then in 1997, a year after I'm born, and a lot of you probably aren't even born yet, at least some of you, I know I got like a good chunk of millennials and some Zoomers here, we aren't even born when the idea of the scout rifle is being kicked around out there, or it's already in practice. Or the fun fact of the STEYR SCOUT being either just as old, almost as old, or older than a good chunk of you.
Now, where did I get my interest in scout rifles from? And the answer is kind of embarrassing. It traces back to 2018 Battlefield 5. It's very much a young gun guy answer, and it kind of ties into a greater topic of how video games can shape culture. But keeping on topic, in the game, what they do to make the firearms aspect of World War II weapons more interesting is they introduce optics and accessories that existed in the time frame but were by no means mass scale issue. Say bolt actions or even semi-auto guns, they'll give you a 3 times magnified optic and a long eye relief setup on your gun. And that's where I got really introduced to this and fell in love with it. I believe Battlefield 1 had them, but I remember Battlefield 5 is what really kicked off the obsession. There was one particular gun. I loved playing as a medic with the Carcano Tromboncino. It's a Carcano fitted with a grenade launcher. Really didn't see that much wide adoption by the Italians, but it's still a rather interesting setup. I have been hunting for a Tromboncino. I've yet to get one. Different note, I liked running a magnified optic on that gun, and it would go ahead and kick off this weird obsession with like bolt actions, the magnified long eye relief up front. I kind of like that idea a lot. There's something kind of like romantic and sexy to it. Not necessarily the most practical, but like imagining it in a World War II setting was kind of cool because, oh, everyone's using bolt action rifles. What if they had some sort of magnification to really benefit those weapons? The Germans did have something like that, maybe some other factions did, but ultimately unfortunately, it didn't see wide-scale adoption. So then fast forward, getting into the firearms world, you start to learn about the Scout rifle concept, and that's exactly what it is, a concept. And so then pairing this early love of a style of rifle, liking it before I even knew what the terminology of was for it, to then matching it up with the knowledge that I would go on and learn later, is kind of a fun journey that I went on, and it landed me here with the STEYR SCOUT.
Gentlemen, this video is sponsored by Americana Pipe Dream Apparel. Night vision knives, manuals, e-bikes, military surplus, and of course American-made clothing. Many wares and items to satiate the autist appetite. Using code ADMIN gets you 10% off your order. Now the STEYR SCOUT we're going over is chambered in 6.5 Coatmore, and Badlands Munition doesn't cover that cartridge. But they do have a bunch of other stuff like 9mm, 300 Blackout, 5.56, 7.62 by 51. Really exciting cartridges, and they're always cooking up some fun stuff over there, and they are a big ammo sponsor here at Administrative Results, and I appreciate those guys very much.
Now, a very fun feature about the STEYR SCOUT is it has a built-in bipod. Facing some criticism for not being as rugged as other bipods, but that is besides the point because it is just built into the gun and integrates seamlessly. I think this is one of my favorite attributes to it, you know, amongst the many to this firearm. I'm kind of fangirling, right? I just like that because even just trying it out real quick, going from a seated kneeling position, deploying the bipod, very seamless and fast. And so I like that about it. You know, is it the most durable bipod? Absolutely not. Not by a long shot. Will it get the job done? Yeah, it stabilizes the gun from a prone firing position. Yet again, this is a gun not designed for a lot of shooting. It's designed for a very important shot, maybe a very important follow-up shot. And God forbid, if that big game is still charging you, trying to eat you, maybe a very important third shot. The fun thing about the gun is putting the bipod back. It sounds like you're breaking it, but just give me a little tap and it closes up. All right, because of the way I am, let's see how fast and accurate we can rip this thing. Got 11, 1 in the chamber, 10 in the mag, 10 in the mag. Let's see how fast we can stay on that steel. Using the bipod, little modified Enfield Mad Minute. Oh, steel down. My dang steel fell over. We're just gonna hit the paper. No, got one more. Whew. Talk about shooter's fatigue. That was the fun I was looking to have. That's the big advantage of a bipod, is if you needed to do work, say out in the field, and there's not a lot of things to prop your rifle against, having a built-in bipod is nice to, say, resurrect a dead target and keep it off of the deck. So, really pulling its weight. The gun is so packed with rich features. Like, it's a lot going on in this bolt action rifle that make it really cool. And for context, I haven't really gone down a massive modern bolt action rifle rabbit hole. I like my older military surplus bolt action rifles. I think those are a blast and I love the rich history. I respect the modern bolt actions for what they can do and the precision that you can get out of them. I just have not yet gone down that rabbit hole. And necessarily this isn't me going down the rabbit hole that much either in a weird way, but it's still a relatively modern, newer bolt action rifle. But that being said, it's also like a product of the 80s and 90s. With the buttstock, I love this aspect. I wish a lot of other guns like this with this style of stock had the spare magazine in the buttstock. When I was building this gun out, I got it, I saw it on the wall, I said, you're coming home with me, I've always wanted one of you, and it came with the 5-round mags. It did not have the magazine extension that you see right here. And so I got the 10 rounders, and I was a little worried, like, is it gonna fit in there? Yeah, it fits no problem. You take a 10-round mag, goes right into the buttstock like a 5-round mag would. As you see by the B-roll, having some issues, and it's a known issue with the STEYR SCOUT, particularly on this first model, where the magazine can come out under recoil. Sometimes that's been happening on me. So we can make it happen again. It could be, depending on the magazine, dependent, like maybe one's stronger than the other with the clips, because a big problem is that the magazine latches at the bottom of the magazine. You see these little teeth. They're not the most robust teeth as far as a magazine catch goes, in my opinion. They are plastic. It's like plastic into plastic pretty much. So that to me could be an issue. Fun fact, there is a secret little storage compartment right here. Secret. You take your magazine out of the back, reach in, give a good push, and you can lift up that compartment and get her out. Come on, you son of a... Same shit, different day. Store my thread protector for the barrel in there, stuff her on home, and close it back up. It's kind of fun, you know? It kind of reminds you of like a Rambo knife. You unscrew the bottom and you thread yourself up. It can hold whatever you can fit in there. But the caveat is, if you put too much weight in there, is it still a scout rifle? The hotly debated topic, the weight of the scout rifle. It arguably is really important. Funny enough for this gun, technically speaking, it does not qualify in the weight department. It's a little hefty for a scout rifle. It needs to go to fat camp. All right, so we got a wheel style dial safety, whatever you want to call it. You see this gray latch protruding, and what that does is it locks your bolt up. Locks your trigger up as well. You're not firing. And of course, our magazine cutoff, moving to the magazine well, I like that a lot. It was part of the big requirements, is having a magazine cutoff for this weapon. And so simply as this gun is now not cut off, it will feed from the top of the magazine, a little bit of a click, not all the way out, and now the magazine cutoff exists. Now, I kind of skipped over the trigger, but the trigger is very nice, very crispy. Nothing. Now, one thing I did on the outside of the gun was put some Velcroed shell holders right here, just for like, let's try it out. I see the bolt action guys that shoot a lot of long distance will do that to have a quick little grab of a round. So right here, we have the flip up iron rear sight. Now, a downside to it is it's kind of hard to get out on its own. If you don't got long nails, if you're well groomed, you can get it, it's doable. I don't like that it's that hard to get up.
That's what she said.
That was a good one. It's a weird criticism though, because I'm kind of spurging out. So it's a criticism because it's slow to get up in the rear sight, but it's really fast to get the front sight up. So it's kind of weird. I'm like, okay, well this thing's under spring tension, pop up like instantly. Meanwhile, I gotta fish this rear sight out and it's gonna take me forever as a line's charging. They pop down nice and easy. Okay, so I love the fact that they had the foresight to include slots for a traditional mounted optic. So for the gentlemen that do go down this rabbit hole of the scout rifle, usually everyone's complaint has a lot to do with the style of optics on the gun. The long eye relief scope and the lower magnification. I've definitely seen it where you're just not getting as much light into that tube as possible. I remember we were trying to zero out at the range on one of these trips as the sun was setting, and it was like, dude, that target is just getting really dark in this optic. Dude, what are you doing? I wanted to brake. That thing's killing me. Dude, we need a video. So the option to run a more advanced scope is kind of cool. It kind of opens up a lot of potential with the gun. Now the rail on this gun is a Weaver rail. It is not a Picatinny rail, so that will affect what kind of optics you can put on. Mainly just, will it work on a Weaver setup or will it work with Picatinny? You'll probably see something a bit goofy. Maybe you've already commented on it by this point in the video, but on the bottom, I have a mod light weapon light attached to this bolt action rifle. And you're probably wondering, hey dum-dum, why is that there? Why do you have that on a bolt action rifle? You planning to do some raids? You planning to be the point man in the stack with your 6.5 Coatmore STEYR SCOUT? Yes, but no. So there was this other gentleman on YouTube who I've been enjoying his videos called On the Scout. And I was watching his video on the gun sight Ruger Scout, and on his rifle, he put a white light option. And the guy's been doing tracking and guided tours through the bush for years. I gotta give him a shout out because I liked his video so much where I was like, dude, this guy has just min-maxed the scout rifle tism. And one thing he pointed out was like in the bush, say if someone took game as the sun's setting and they want to process the meat, they could worry about other predators showing up. And so having a weapon light on your gun in the bush in that scenario was advantageous to him. So that is attached to a Picatinny rail down there that is attached to, I believe, a UCI rail. It's a very well thought out gun. Moving down to the barrel, you can clearly see we got some flutes going on there. And of course, moving down to the silencer, we have the Hot Potato Huxworks can because it kind of looks like a spud. I don't know. It's kind of got a spud shape to it. That crazy? Kind of look like potato?
Yeah, definitely potato-y.
So it's a threaded barrel. The problem is the thread adapters are like this weird 1/2 by 20, not like a 1/2 by 28 or anything like that. So I had to get an adapter for the barrel, and then I could put whatever, like say the Huxworks muzzle brake on there, so then I could put a can on there. So really the big features that make mine stand out more personally to me would be the silencer, the white light, the scout scope, the shell holder, and then the 10-round magazine. Now all of these things combined together puts it over the 6.6 or 3 kilogram weight threshold by a third of its size. Like I think it's around like just under 10 pounds right now. So ironically, it's not in its scout rifle configuration true to the definition. Another thing to consider is the spacers in the stock. How it's set up right now with my length of pull, I like it. I like it a lot. Some guy on the internet was like, if you take out all the spacers, you can shoulder it quicker. For me, with my arms, it works a-okay. Another cool thing are the sling swivels. So the sling swivels are pretty slick because you can really configure the sling wherever you want it. You just push it in, swivel it over, and it locks into place. Now, another weird categorizer of a scout rifle, a really important thing to have would be a Ching sling. I am 1K away from getting demonetized. So we've been filming with this gun for a while now, haven't we, Colton? We've gone over multiple trips, multiple months, it seems like. One thing we didn't have when starting this video was this Ching sling. Now, thanks to Don on the Scout, who got me in touch with Andy's Leather, they sent over this Ching sling. And the Ching sling, and you know, I gotta apologize because at the start of filming this video, you know, the process of it all, the start of, you know, the video you clicked on, I didn't think I was gonna need a Ching sling. As I now have one on here and shooting with it, I can definitely see the benefits of this sling setup. You can really retain that pressure of the rifle to your body so much better with the leverage of your arm. I'm impressed. Now, one thing to think about is I'm a young guy, right? The Ching sling idea isn't really in our forethought when it comes to the AR-15 and or adjacent intermediate cartridge platforms. Like, it's just not there whatsoever. The whole reason a sling exists on a lot of my rifles today is just to retain it to my body, keep my hands free while I do stuff, and God forbid if I have to switch to a pistol in case I couldn't get it done with a rifle. But ideally, you're switching to a pistol to look cool while you're posting that to Instagram to impress all of your other gun buddies. So the Ching sling is just really not in our forethought. So Andy also sent over a couple more slings. So he sent 3 total, rendition sling, and then 2 of the Ching slings. Really does help build out this entire idea that is the scout rifle, because without the sling, you know, you're kind of missing a good chunk of the idea that was Jeff Cooper's scout rifle. We just don't give that much credence to the sling as a supportive tool today as they used to back then, but it is a fun missing link in the puzzle. Hell of a rifle, old boy. Hell of a rifle for Azerbaijan. You have any rum on you? Bang!
Gentlemen, I know I caught you on the toilet drinking your coffee, eating your beer. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe. If you haven't already, leave me that comment in the comment section down below. Your comment is a sacrifice to the algorithmic gods here on the big YouTube. They're not really big fans of firearms channels, so that interaction does help out the channel. And of course, I get a comment from you, which when you're on the toilet writing it, I'm on the toilet responding. So in a weird way, it's like we're kind of connected in this big wide world of ours.
Got him. It's too easy.
Now, as cool as the STEYR SCOUT is, I do have my critiques and wishes from a platform or from the idea of the scout rifle. On the STEYR SCOUT, I wish there was the option to use stripper clips. Would I ever use stripper clips realistically? I don't know. I like the option. I think stripper clips are cool as hell. I don't know if it's feasible with this particular action. Like, I just don't know enough about it. Like, it's one of those you don't know what you don't know kind of things. Now, this next thought is more on the wish list idea side of things when it comes to the scout rifle. And the idea comes, funny enough, from the SIG Spear, chambered in .277 Fury or 6.8. And this comes from the idea of the ammo itself, with that ammo cooking extremely fast. Now, on that platform, there's been a lot of criticism about with the ammo cooking so fast that the barrels are gonna burn out very quickly, and that's kind of a downside seeing to the gun. With a scout rifle, though, you're not supposed to be shooting that much, so I don't think it would ever be a problem, but where I'm getting at is shortening the barrel down and maybe trying something chambered in one of those rounds could be kind kind of cool in my opinion. Because as it stands right now, the STEYR SCOUT has a 19-inch barrel, and that's to make use of whatever cartridge that it's chambered in to help burn off that powder and get a good velocity so you can take an animal of a certain weight. I don't know how applicable it will be, right? If we're using that, say, 277 Fury round, maybe it's a 140 grain 277 Fury, but that's my kind of idea of playing with, like, what if there was a 13-inch Scout rifle barrel, chopping that length down, and then it makes it less of a musket, right, when you have that silencer on the gun if you wanted to use a silencer. But I'm just potentially spitballing here. I'm sure I'll get fact-checked by the ballisticians out there. They'll say, no, Admin, that's a bad idea. Bad boy. I just want a short, cool gun with the silencer on it. Call me crazy. All right, now the last idea I had for a potential wish list item may be a stretch. And it's one we haven't seen for a long time, but it'll be an offset magnified optic and like a really good mount, you know? But the idea is you have your inline iron sights that you can utilize with your offset magnified optic, kind of backwards to what we do now, where we have the inline magnified optic and then say like an offset red dot or offset irons. I think it'd be kind of a cool and fun twist and at least have some unique aspect to it that would be very desirable in that sense. It'd be eclectic for sure. Well, and the fun thing about doing that is you could even have a traditional optic in that sense, where it's not a long eye relief scope, but it could be closer back towards the action, and you could still do stripper clips, which would be kind of sick. I think that actually covers like my wish list so far that I can remember off the top of my head while filming this. Kind of weird, probably not practical, especially with the offset version. I think there may be some legs with the 277 short barrel Scout chambering, given the velocity, and or just doing maybe a bigger cartridge and a short chambering. It's things I want, but it's kind of like a kid in a candy store where you're like, I want this, but you know it's probably not good for you.
Your sunglasses look stupid.
We're wearing the same sunglasses. Give me the camera. Look. All right, peak consumer brain.
These glasses are actually pretty sick.
They work really well in the desert, not gonna lie. I saw them like on Instagram and I was like, honestly, I like that vibe. I'm gonna consume.
Okay, so with this particular Burris 2.7 by 20, it is not the best glass that I've ever used. The only thing that I really feel confident doing with it is closer in shots, pushing out beyond that. Taking an ethical vitals hit on an animal would feel risky with this optic. Now, it's weird to say that and think about this in terms of history. Like if I was to drop this optic off to like a soldier in World War II, they'd be like, dude, thank you. This thing is sick. Thank you so much. In today's setting, with how far optics have advanced and progressed, you really do notice it. Trying to actually see things in detail and get like a positive identification with a lower powered optic like this that lets in less light when you actually do get behind the gun if you wanted to take that shot and you just lose it because of the magnification. That's like the worry that I have. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, long distance shooters are technically rocket scientists. What is a bullet doing when you hit that primer? It ignites a explosion. And that explosion, the goal of the shooter is to best calculate the trajectory of that debris, where it's gonna land. So in a way, maybe long distance shooting is rocket science. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Speed! All mics, no alphas! Just for YouTube, to appear like a better shooter. Okay, now, I don't know if I talked about this on the gun, but the bolt, where it sits in relation to the trigger guard with your trigger finger, I love that a lot because you can snap shoot this thing rapid fire, kind of like the British would do with a close quarter combat style of manipulation with their infields. You can pinch the bolt and use your middle finger to get around there, and you can just cycle that thing really fast. I like that. I think that's fun, dude. I think that's a good time. You know, it's like a neat little detail. Think about this, like think about the guns that we so often gravitate towards, the militaristic gas guns. One thing they have in common is that they all typically run a little bit heavier than this thing would itself. This is like a tool for being out in the wilderness for an extended period of time without being fatigued by a massive amount of kit. How I have it set up right now is a bit too much for what I would probably want to do. I would probably strip it back down to the 5-round configuration, probably ditch the silencer, ditch the flashlight, and just have a naked gun. I mean, the flashlight's kind of nice, I guess, for nighttime. I like seeing in the dark. I might keep the flashlight. It's not a bad idea. Thanks on the Scout. But I would strip it back down, and because I don't need 20 rounds on the gun. I'm not getting into a bush fight with a bunch of critters. And another thing with having this magazine extension on the gun, it takes away from the natural ease of carry at the balance point. It's already a little bit unbalanced now with the silencer. Maybe the 10 round mags when they're loaded up helps with the balance, but the grip of it, when it's not there, it's a very slender, nice receiver that you can just grab on and it balances well. But it's a bit beefy now, so it kind of moves the balance point around as far as ease of carry goes. That being said, it does look hella freaking sick, dude. I love the way this thing looks. The curves and the lines of the gun all make this very interesting silhouette, right? And aesthetics to a firearm is very important. Like nice aesthetics to a tool is very important because you can have a weapon, but that weapon also having a level of elegance, that utility having elegance in itself is very desirable. Lord of the Plains.
I gotta say, like the silhouette of the stock, and then you get to like this part right here, it's such a funny little angle. It's in this really weird, uncanny category valley of like being a cool looking gun, but also almost looking like a fish. Now, if you're in certain firearm spaces, you may be very obsessed with certain aspects of a certain niche of certain firearms, and you may just know nothing about other aspects and how in depth those guys will go. And that was kind of the case for going down this rabbit hole, especially reading Richard Mann's book, because like just the sheer amount of detail talking into like the angle and sloping of the stock back here, how it interfaces with the cheek and other such nuances about like the stock and the bedding and all of that. It was a lot to chew off, and it made me appreciate a whole new aspect of firearms technology that I was just ignorant to. And that's kind of a beautiful thing about this YouTube channel and getting to do this is I get to dip my toes into a whole different realm that I normally probably wouldn't have ever gone down, and then also really enjoying a whole new weapons platform that I didn't think I was gonna like that much. I knew about it, I thought it was cool, but I didn't realize I was gonna be like, okay, this thing's actually very cool, I like it a lot. It's starting to float towards the top of my more favorite of firearms. And the fun thing about it is it's been around just as long as I have. Well, gentlemen, I had an absolute blast making this video and going down a whole new rabbit hole, and I do love that I get to do this for you guys, and thanks for watching. I do want to give a shout out to Don on the Scout. I was talking to him some back and forth going over the idea of the Scout rifle, and he was helping me pinpoint some ideas and really helped curate some of the things that I had in my head. And of course, that guy's just got to be a wizard with it. You know, a young guy out there constantly using a Scout rifle. I think that's really cool. Also, shout out to Richard Mann's book, The Scout Rifle Study. Kind of helped out a lot with this video and really pinpointing some other details that I was looking for when I wanted to curate my thoughts. Got nothing else for you, gentlemen. Godspeed.
You're a lonely, sad little f***. You know that?
Yeah,
You know I love you, right?
of course, brother.